Hey there, and welcome to the Girl Means Business podcast, the show that's all about helping photographers just like you build a thriving business without sacrificing your sanity. I'm your host, Kendra Swalls, a former teacher turned full-time photographer and marketing coach, here to fill your earbuds each week with practical tips, real-life stories, and a whole lot of encouragement. So if you're ready to dive in, let's get to it because this girl means business. Hey friend, welcome back to the Girl Means Business podcast. Last week, we wrapped up our Know, Like, and Trust series. And if you did not go and listen to those, I highly recommend you go back and check out the Know, Like, and Trust episodes because it really helps you to build a foundation in your business that all your other marketing is going to stand upon. And I am such a big believer in building really solid foundations in marketing. And by doing that, you're able to kind of play around with some other things and there's less pressure on you to like be on social media all the time or to show up in certain things. And so having that foundation in place is really, really helpful. And so those episodes really give you what you need in order to build that foundation. Now for this week's episode, I wanted to go back to the well a little bit because I haven't done one of these episodes in a while. And I love doing them, and it is answering listener questions. So over the last few months, I've kind of been gathering some questions that I've received via email or DM, or that I've had in conversations with someone in a Facebook group or through a chat message. But I've been putting them aside with the idea that if it's something that someone else is having a question about, more than likely it's a shared question that multiple people can benefit from. So what I want to do in today's episode is grab a couple of those questions and just read them out and talk about them because they're things that either I've really gone into more depth on other episodes or that don't really require a huge whole episode in itself to talk about, but is really helpful information to have. So we're going to cover about 3 or 4 questions depending on how much time we have. And so let's get into it. Okay, the first question that I want to look at is one that I received. This was a while back ago from Jessica. She is a photographer out of the Austin area. And she sent me a message kind of in regards to a Facebook post that I'd commented on. So this is what she wrote. Hey, Kendra, thank you so much for your comment on the Instagram post. I have been getting really discouraged in my business lately. I feel like every time I open Instagram or Facebook, there's a new photographer popping up in my area. It's honestly overwhelming. I love what I do, but sometimes I wonder if there's even room for me anymore. How can I make my business stand out when it feels like everyone is offering the same thing and often offering it for a much lower price? Okay, this is a very, very common sentiment that I see in a lot of Facebook groups and a lot of conversations that I'm having. It's this idea of the scarcity mindset a little bit. It's the saturated market idea. And I do hear this quite a bit of, well, there's so many photographers. And I agree, especially when you're in a large area and really anywhere, but smaller towns, maybe not as much because there's a smaller group of people to actually be pulling from. But when you live in a large city, so I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. This person's writing in from the Austin area. I've had this conversation with someone out of like the Denver area. When you're in a large metropolitan area, it can feel like everybody and their dog are a photographer, especially when we're on social media. We're seeing things that are happening in all these various places. And here's just a little side note on that. Part of it, I think the problem is that we are opening ourselves up to such a larger, broader conversation with social media. So in this case, Jessica, she's going on social media. She specifically said Instagram or Facebook. And she's going on and she is seeing content from other people where they're saying, I've started this business or I'm offering these mini sessions. I think the original topic of this conversation revolved around mini sessions on the Facebook post that I was commenting on. And, everybody's, especially in the holidays, here's my mini session, here's this, here's that. And it can feel like the walls are closing in on you a little bit. But here's my take on that. And the reason why, or one of the many reasons why I'm trying to minimize social media's presence in my life is because we as humans were never really designed to live in a community that's as large as the community we've created for us. Anthropologically, humans were designed to live in small communities of 50, 100, 150 people, like small packs of people. And if you think about like just 50, 100 years ago, you would not be seeing all the things happening outside of your community. You had your nightly news, you might have like your local news, you might have, maybe the world news for 10 or 15, 20 minutes on before the local news. You weren't having access to what everybody within a 100-mile or globally even radius of you was doing. And so it creates this mindset of like the world is shrinking because we're seeing things that are happening all over the place. And in this case of this specific question, she's going online and she's seeing these other photographers that are popping up, and let's just say, okay, Jessica lives in the Austin area. Let's say she lives in like downtown Austin, like Congress Avenue, Austin, downtown. And there is a photographer that she sees that pops up online that lives in Round Rock, which is 30 minutes north of Austin. Well, in her mind, because again, in social media, we're shrinking the world into this little bitty box in our hand or this computer screen in front of us. It feels like that person is encroaching on our community, on our audience, because even though she's 30 miles away, we're seeing it in our feed. So I hope the way I explain this makes sense, but like our brains are not designed to comprehend and process the shrinking of our world. And so a lot of this comes down to mindset. And a lot of it comes back to this idea that like, even if, let's take the Austin example of Jessica's in downtown Austin, and if she's a family photographer and she's photographing families just that also live in the downtown area, that person in Round Rock 30 minutes away has zero bearing on her audience. Zero. Whereas before social media was a thing, she would never have even known that photographer was there unless they met up in real life or she heard from a friend of a friend of a friend. It would not have had the same impact. So we have to kind of take the knowledge we have now and the access we have now with social media, but still go back into our brains and process it through the lens of our world is not shrinking. Our world is still the same size. We just have to put into perspective what it is that we are able to actually control and what information do we actually need to receive. And I say this a lot with like family members who watch the news nonstop, which drives me nuts. That's a whole other soapbox, but we were not designed to watch 24-hour news, people. Our brains are not created for that. They're not designed for that. They are not able to handle that intake of information. But I remember when my oldest daughter was going in to have like dental surgery, or not even dental surgery. She was having a cavity filled, and they were going to put the nitrous on her and all that kind of stuff. And I had a family member who heard this was happening and called me and basically was like, just be careful. There was a kid recently that died in the dentist chair for having too much nitrous oxide, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, when did this happen? Oh, it was like a couple of years ago. Okay, where did this happen? Somewhere in New York. Okay, well, I don't live in New York. And I'm all for like being cautious and being aware, but I don't need to know that someone in New York 5 years ago died of a nitrous overdose when my kid's going, like, it's just not information I need to have. I don't need to be afraid of alligators if I don't live in Florida. I don't need to be afraid of a shark attack if I don't live on the ocean. But we have all these things coming into our brain. So again, my soapbox, but all of that to say, the same thing applies when it comes to comparing yourself to what you're seeing or falling into that scarcity mindset trap. When you really break it down and you think, okay, I live in this area. This other photographer that just popped up with her $20 mini sessions lives 30 miles from me. She's not targeting the same people I am. She's not charging the same thing I am. People will see value. Like, there's just so many people out there to be our clients that we cannot hone in on and worry about someone else stealing our clients. And I really know and I understand that's easier to say than to do. It's easy in theory, it's a little harder in practice. But if we are constantly training our brains to think a certain way, you're going to notice a difference. If you train your brain to go, oh no, that person's not a threat because they're not in my immediate vicinity, or they are not doing the same thing I'm doing, or whatever you want to tell yourself, whatever makes sense in your brain, you have to like almost repeat that multiple times. And you need to limit what you're allowing yourself to see on Facebook. And I know everyone wants to be in the Facebook groups and everybody wants to be friends with everybody on Facebook and do all the things, or Instagram or whatever. But you are welcoming multiple pieces of information into your brain on a regular basis. And if it's causing you to have anxiety, if it's causing you to compare, if it's causing you to have the scarcity mindset in a world where it's really not about being scarce, then you need to filter out that information as much as possible. Now, I do want to touch really quickly on the second part of her question, which basically was saying, how can I make my business stand out? I genuinely believe, 100% believe that if you have really solid marketing in place, if you have an understanding of who your ideal client is that you're trying to speak to, and everything you're doing is geared towards that ideal client avatar, you are going to find ways to stand out. Because the person that's popping up in your feed, that's the brand new photographer offering that $20 mini session, is trying to just appeal to anybody and everybody, the jack of all trades type, and that's not going to necessarily work for long. If you just kind of put your blinders on and go, you know what? I am focused on these types of families in these areas, and this is what I know is going to appeal to them. That $20 mini session offer, if a client leaves to go over there, they were not your ideal client in the first place. So it's 110% about mindset. There is things you can do to filter the things that come into your brain and into your world, your sphere. But when they do find their way in, you have to have the mindset piece in place in order to bring yourself out of that scarcity mindset. So that's probably not the question that everyone wants to have the answer everybody wants, because they want the like quick fix, like, well, how do I do this? But that's the reality of it. It all comes back to mindset. And when I had this conversation in the messages with Jessica, like we went back and forth for a while. And I do really believe that she now has on the path to having a right framework in her brain around this. But it's definitely something that I know is a lot of people struggle with. Okay, let's move on to another question. So let's go with, okay, this one right here. So this was a question I received from someone who I have kind of had an ongoing coaching friendship relationship with. And she sent me a message and said, her name's Megan. And she said, I recently took your advice and raised my prices. I'm really proud of the value that I offer, but I keep getting messages now from people saying things like, you're out of our budget, or we found someone cheaper. It's really starting to mess with my confidence. So how can I handle the rejection of clients saying I'm too expensive or out of their price point without feeling like I made the wrong choice in raising my prices? Okay, this is one, and y'all are gonna hate me for saying this. It's mindset again. Oh my gosh, I know, I get it. You're probably like wanting to throw me out your car window right now, but it really is. Like when you have decided that you are worth X amount of dollars, you have to remember why you're worth that. And sometimes that takes being reminded, either from a friend, a mentor, yourself, writing yourself a note, writing yourself a message you can go back to, whatever it is you need to do to kind of remind yourself of the reason why you felt that valuable in the first place. Go back to that. You are going to have people say you're out of budget or we found someone cheaper. It's just, or they're going to ghost you completely. That's the new thing. People just ghost people. That's going to happen. Like there's really no way to avoid that. There are things that you can do to kind of mitigate that. But even if you do all the things, you cannot control what other people do or say or think. So in this case, when Megan decided to raise her prices, we'd had multiple conversations. I helped her kind of work through like the incremental price increase. and seeing that value in what she brought to her clients, there is valid reason why she needed to raise her prices. However, yes, you're going to have a little bit of growing pains, especially if you're now pricing yourself out of the budget of what some of your past clients may have been comfortable with, but that's okay. I think about this kind of like when you go shopping. You have three different tiers of shoppers. You have, well, more than that, but we'll just go with three. You have the Walmart shopper. Now, and this is nothing against Walmart. Love Walmart. The Walmart shopper is not looking for the high-end experience. They want to stop, get what they need for the best price they can find, and get out. They want it, the ease of access and the low price point is what appeals to them. They don't care about the shopping experience. They don't care what the store looks like. They don't even really technically care about the quality necessarily. They're in it for the budget and for the ease of access. Those are your clients that are going to want like the $50 mini session. They want easy. They don't want to have to go look at a gallery. They want to go in, get the 20-minute session, get their digital photos, and they're out. Okay, that's the Walmart shopper. Then you have your Target shoppers. Now, your Target shoppers, they want a little bit more of the experience. They want a little bit more of the quality, but they don't necessarily want this, the huge price tag that comes with some of that higher end experience. They're your middle of the road. Well, this is where a majority of your clients are going to fall. And there's a pretty wide range of prices in this point for photographers. But when you think about your Target shopping experience, you might go in and you get a little Starbucks coffee and you kind of take your time. You're not going to go in there and just sort of rush through. Most people don't want to rush through. You want to browse the aisles. You want to see you want to smell the candles. You want to like see what's new in the Magnolia section. You want to enjoy the shopping experience. Maybe it's a break. Maybe it's whatever. You also want quality. You're looking for a little higher quality than what you would get if you went into Walmart and grabbed a great value product. You want the name brand. You want, things that are a little bit better made. So when it comes to photography, those are your clients that are going to say, I'm willing to pay a little bit more because I want the experience. I want this to be a fun experience that my family does together. We play, we laugh, we do all the things, or I get pampered with hair and makeup. That's the experience they want. They're willing to pay a little bit more for it to get the quality, but they are not looking to like shell out a year's worth of savings for it. So that's going to be the majority of your audience. Now you also have what I would call like the high-end white glove boutique shopping experience. These are the people who really want the red carpet rolled out. They want all the bells and whistles. They want the highest quality products. They want the things that that feels exclusive, that nobody else is really having access to, and they're willing to pay high value, high prices to receive that experience. Those are your clients that are going to pay top dollar, but they expect a top dollar experience. They expect you to walk them and hold their hand through the entire process. They expect all the bells and whistles of styling and hair and makeup and getting to come in and see their images and order albums and wall art and prints and all the things. So that's your high-end experience. So when you're thinking about your price point, you have your Walmart, your Target, your boutique. Where do you fall in that spectrum? Where do you fall? Where does your ideal client fall? Who is the person you're trying to appeal to? So when you say, I'm going from being a Target photographer to being a high-end boutique photographer, you have to make sure it's what your audience wants. But if you know that all of that aligns and you know that the service you provide is of that quality, you have to get behind that 110%, because if you go in to meet with a client and you're walking through your white glove experience and you're not 100% confident in it, they're going to know that. So when you raise your prices and you're now pricing yourself out of the Target experience or out of the Walmart experience into the Target experience, you are going to eliminate some people, and that's okay. It's just attrition. It's like when companies need to get rid of people, trim the fat. They do that. It happens. And again, that's okay because you're opening yourself up to new clients that are going to come in that are more of your ideal clients. Now, as far as actually the emails that come in and say you're out of my budget or someone's cheaper. Two things I say to that. One is, in order to avoid those conversations at all, make sure your pricing is very clearly stated on your website, or at least a starting point pricing. It will help to really filter a lot of the people that are coming through to get information, and then they have kind of sticker shock when they see your prices. If they know before they ever reach out to you what your price point is, then it gives a little bit of that filter of like, okay, they've already seen my pricing and they're still interested. So they're probably at least within budget. Saying we found someone cheaper, I always just say, I respond with, no problem. Hope, wishing you the best. Hope everything works out. That's it. There's no reason to argue or haggle your pricing. Do not come down on pricing. Know your value. Stick to your value. I go back to the store thing. If I walk into Target and I go into the dress section and I find a dress that I love, but it's out of my price range and I just need it for this one event, I don't go to the register and go, hey, I really just need to wear this one time. Can I pay half price for it? They're going to look at me like I'm crazy, because they're like, no, the price is the price. I don't care how often you wear it. The price is the price. So when those people come back to you and they say, I really love your work. I really would love to work with you, but you're just out of my price range. Okay, well, call me when I am in your price range. That's the kind of confidence you need to have in your business. And I understand that there are times where you're like, I just need the money. I just need the clients. I get that. I've been there. But again, every time that you lower your prices, you are devaluing what you offer. And you are now taking away a spot in your calendar that could be there for the right client when they come along. So just keep those things in mind. Raising your prices is hard. I recommend, doing it either little at a time or with whatever feels comfortable for your business, but you definitely need to make sure that you are pricing yourself for the value that you offer. Okay, we'll do one more quick question and then we'll wrap up for this week. So this one, let's see, we have two here I'm going to choose between. Let's go with this one. Okay. To blog or not to blog was the subject of her email that she sent to me. She was like, hey, Kendra, I've been listening to your podcast for a while and I love all of the valuable tips that you're sharing. Thank you so much. Quick question. I am a wedding photographer in Michigan, and I have always heard that blogging your weddings is really valuable. However, I don't know that I actually see the value in this anymore. Does anyone actually look at blogs anymore, or does it have any real impact on our business? I'm already incredibly busy editing, managing social media, and doing all the things. Is blogging something that I really need to be doing? Thanks so much for your help and your feedback. I really appreciate it. Okay, so Lauren, wedding photographer in Michigan. Yes.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Let me ask you something. How many hours have you spent in your business stressing over social media, fighting with an algorithm, trying to keep up with the latest trends, and just posting for the sake of posting, only to feel like you're spinning your wheels and nobody's even paying attention? I've been there, and let me tell you, it is the worst. But I have a fun little secret for you. Did you know that you don't actually need social media to keep your calendar full? Now, I know that goes against everything all of the other quote unquote experts are telling you to do in your business, but I am living proof that you do not need social media to grow your photography business. I have been successfully staying booked solid in my photography business for the last 8 years with very minimal social media use. And I am excited to show you exactly what I've been doing inside of a private podcast series. The 7-day booking blueprint is 8 power-packed episodes that you can binge all at once or listen to at your own pace. Each episode is actionable and designed to help you book more clients without relying on social media. If you're hearing this ad right now, that means that you are a fan of the Girl Means Business podcast. Thank you, by the way. But if you've ever found yourself saying, man, I wish I could just dive even deeper. I wish I could have a one-on-one sit down with Kendra and really pick her brain about all the things that she's doing in her business, then this podcast series is going to give you everything you've been hoping for. It is so packed with so much information that you are going to walk away feeling like you have the exact roadmap you need to grow your photography business. So if you're ready to hop off that social media hamster wheel and actually start seeing results in your business and start filling up your calendar, head down to the show notes and grab the link so that you can start listening right away. I am a big believer in blogging. Here's why. One, in a world of social media, blogging is going to get you further than any social media post will. And I'm not, y'all know, I have my love-hate relationship with social media, more hate than love, but I am not discrediting the value of content on social media, because you could post photos from your wedding that you did on social media, and maybe the brides, all their family, friends, bridesmaids will see it, and someone will book with you because they saw your photos that the bride shared. That can absolutely happen, and that has value. However, it has a very short shelf life. From the time that you post those photos to the time that they're really no longer relevant on social media is very quick. And so while it can be beneficial, it's not going to really have a lasting impact for as long as blogging will. When you take that same wedding and you create a blog post, and you create a blog post that's not just about how beautiful their wedding day was, but maybe you're writing an entire article on the venue that the wedding was at, or they had an incredible wedding coordinator, and you write a whole article about the value of having a day of wedding coordinator, and you create this informational blog post. And in there, you're also showcasing this real wedding that you did that was stunning. And you're, tagging, and you're using keywords for the venue, the dress, the cake maker, the florist, all the things. You're sharing it out with those vendors. You're putting it on social media. You're doing all the things. You are going to find that blog post is going to work behind the scenes for your business for a really long time. And I have a couple of examples of this, and I've told the one before of the blog that I did for the couple who she told her husband that she was pregnant during the photo shoot, and it kind of went viral. But let me give you a less viral example of how this has worked. So several years ago, I was getting into a lot of boudoir photography. I was also working with this one influencer who was getting into modeling and TV, and she was on a couple reality shows for a while and whatnot. But she had this idea. She was collaborating with this place out in East Texas that had little cabins you could rent. And so she was like, hey, I'm supposed to come and do a whole thing to help them advertise their cabins. Would you want to come and do a photo shoot out here? And I was like, yeah, that'd be really fun. She goes, why don't I get some friends together and we'll do a whole themed photo shoot. So we did a whole session that was kind of this, it was around probably this time of year, end of October, early November. It was getting chilly out. And I was like, why don't we do kind of a Christmas theme? That way it's relevant to the season. And we did sort of Victoria's Secret inspired, because at the time, the Victoria's Secret pink brand was really into these very styled shoots where it felt like it was a glimpse into a girl's real life. So a sleepover or a party they were going to or whatever. So I was like, why don't we do that? And she went and we got a bunch of cute outfits, and they were more cozy, loungewear, kind of a little bit sexy too. And we went and did a couple pictures out by the campfire, and they had these cute little hats on, and they had their cozy pajamas. We did some inside of the cabins. We did some with Christmas lights. It was really, really fun. It was just playful and fun. And they all shared about it, but I created a blog post, and I think the title was Victoria's Secret inspired cabin session or something along those lines, holiday session. And I shared the photos. And if you go look on my blog and the analytics, that one has one of my highest viewed blogs of all time. And that was it was before COVID, so 6 or 7 years ago. I do have it on Pinterest. It's one of my top traffic driving pins, which means that it's bringing people to my website to view that blog, which then hopefully they view other parts of my website. But it's a traffic driving post. If I look at that blog post versus the social media post, those girls, because I think there were 4 girls All 4 of them shared the photos, plus I shared the photos. So 5 of us were sharing onto our accounts. Granted, they have much larger accounts than I do. They all shared and they all got traffic, but here we are 6 years later, and there's no way those social posts are ever going to see the light of day again, because they're so far buried under all of their newer content that no one's going to click back to 6 years in their content and look at that post and go to that site. Whereas that blog post every year around the holidays still gets a spike in traffic because the keywords are relevant. It's evergreen content, but it's also seasonal content because of the holiday aspect of it. It has sort of a larger name brand attached to it as far as Victoria's Secret, because that was where the clothing came from. All of that still drives traffic to my blog on a regular basis and ultimately turns traffic into clients, which is one of the many reasons why I don't have to be on social media, because I've built a foundation on blogging and SEO and Google and all those things in order to drive traffic and turn into clients without me having to spend all my time on social creating content that gets buried within a couple of hours or days. So yes, to answer your question, I do believe that blogging is still really important. I do believe that it's still relevant. And even if there's not a ton of people reading the content, it is still being indexed on Google for as long as it is active on your site. And it is still helping to drive traffic. So I would highly recommend that, yes, you do create blogs. Now, the caveat there, the little asterisk I'll put on there is you can create a blog post that's just the photos from that session or that wedding and talk about the wedding, and that's great. It's not going to have as big of an impact as if you take that same wedding and you turn it into an informational blog post that is then going to help a future bride learn something about wedding planning that maybe she didn't know before, or confirms something she was already thinking. I'll give one more example, and then I know this episode's kind of running long, so I will wrap it up. But I did a wedding years ago when I was doing weddings. And it was the first wedding I'd had where the bride and groom's family switched sides of the church. So normally the bride's family sits on the left side, on the side of the bride and the bridesmaids. The groom sits on the groom's side with the groom and the groomsmen. Well, this family had decided they were going to switch sides because the groom's family and the bride's family were like, we want to see our kids' faces during the wedding instead of the back of their heads. We want to be looking at our child's faces. So the bride's family could see the bride, the groom's family could see the groom. It was really cool. I was like, well, that's genius. Like, why have more people not thought of this? So when I was blogging that wedding, I specifically made it about that topic, about, new traditions in wedding ceremonies. And that was the main thing I focused on, was that it makes total sense that the bride's family wants to see her, the groom's family wants to see him. Why are we sitting on the traditional sides? Let's switch it up. And that drives traffic. There are still people who view that post. It gets pinned on Pinterest. It gets saved into people's wedding boards on Pinterest. Like, these are all things that it's benefiting my business. I only had to do it one time and it lives on forever. I can reshare that on social media if I want to anytime, but it has a much larger impact than just blogging that wedding and talking about how beautiful the wedding was or what vendors were, associated with it or whatnot. So yes, blogging is 100% effective if done in that way, like where it now becomes a resource for your audience. All right, guys. So those are our listener questions episodes. This is so fun. I love doing these kind of, I know I say rapid fire. I'm not rapid at all. I'm so sorry, but I'm trying. But if you have questions you would like to send to me, I would love to do another episode of this. I do have a couple more of the questions I had saved that we didn't get to. So I may do another version of this later on. But hopefully you found this helpful. If you have other questions you want me to answer here on the podcast, you are welcome to send them to me at my email address at kendra@girlmeansbusiness.com, or you can find me on social media at Girl Means Business and send me a DM. Even if you send me a question and I don't read it here on the podcast, I will answer it. So just know that all these questions I have answered for them. I'm just also sharing them with you here on the podcast. So don't feel like if you don't get your question asked, you will still get an answer from me one way or another. All right, guys, I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you back here next week, same time, same place.